Steve Wright Talk Show.
Get online with Steve Wright. Call 0345 1053 89 right now.
How you doing, friend? It's coming up on 11:20. This is Talk Radio UK. If you want to talk about radio here this morning, that'd be nice. Be a bit self-indulgent here. We can talk about radio for a while. In particular, are you happy with Talk Radio? And is there anything that we're doing or not doing that we should be doing? There's actually been an explosion of new radio stations all around the country. New formats and new and exciting presenters rule the roost. Old format and received pronunciations are out. All talk, all dance, classical, jazz, sports, news talk, national, local, incremental. They're all here. We've come a long way from Radio Caroline and Radio London and pirate radio days. Is radio better now than it was then? Does it lack excitement? Is there more excitement? Is there more interest? More fun? Less fun? You tell us. 0345 1053 89. And I think you'll find, actually, when you call that, I think you'll find it's actually the price for a local.
But are you a doctor?
I am not a doctor. Okay. So, listen, we have a couple of guests here. Paul Donovan, who is, I describe you as a radio critic from the Times, from the Sunday Times.
You could do, yeah.
Would that be all right, Paul?
It would be fine.
Because I need a good review. Okay. and here's...
You've had a few already.
Yes, I have. Thank you. And here's Johnnie Walker, legendary broadcaster.
We are not worthy.
Oh, shut up.
We are not worthy.
Give it a break.
But you know the thing about you, Johnny, and every time we've gone on the air together, I always say this, and I mean it, and you know this.
No, don't.
No, you are the greatest living disc jockey ever.
It costs me a fortune a year, you know,
No, but the thing is, it's a little bit like there are some broadcasters, no matter, you know, whether they're here or not here, gone or whatever, like Caesar, like yourself, and they just have it. They just have something, and you have it there.
And you got it too, Steve.
Stop
That's
it.
enough of all
And
of
you
that.
both want to go and see
Hey,
a
listen, you want to know
doctor
an
about it.
extra advantage of motorcycling, right?
Oh, yeah, we were talking about bikes
You
the
were
other
talking
week.
about bikes last... Have you had your ride yet?
You know, it's December the something or
Rocky
other.
Right. Well, my son, who's recently 21, he rides a Honda 600, right? And he parks it overnight. So we go out to the bikes this morning, and there's this little brown envelope there, and he thought, oh, I've got a ticket. And what it is a brown envelope. Inside, it says on the outside, have fun, my little or something, love from Beverly. And there's two pills inside.
My sister's Beverly.
Now, Lord knows what they are.
So what are you saying?
And this little thing saying, sexy blonde transvestite, let me be your fantasy.
So are you saying that
You've
if you...
never met Beverly. You see, these are the sort of fringe benefits you get
being a
when you're a
biker.
biker, yeah.
Will he be meeting Beverly, Johnny?
Well, I'm certainly going to bear that in mind.
We might just try the number out, but the pills, I think, will leave us well
I
alone.
should think so, only if they're paracetamol. All right, now, let's talk to Paul, first of all. You're a radio critic. Do you think radio is in a healthy state at the moment, Paul?
Well, I don't think radio's got better, and it hasn't got worse, but I mean, there's just so much more of it. In 1979, when Mrs. Thatcher came to power, there were 19 commercial stations in the whole of this country. There are now 181, including this one.
Wow. What effect do you think
and that's not, of course, to mention any of the BBC stations.
Right. But do you think that the commercial radio, the advent of commercial radio in this country has had a good effect on the BBC in terms of radio?
I think it's made the BBC look to their own operations in every way, but the most interesting thing about it in terms of the expansion of radio is that the expansion of stations hasn't gone hand in hand with the expansion in listening.
In what way do you mean?
If you look at the number of hours that people are listening to the radio, it's actually gone down 2.5% in the last 3 years. So in other words, the total listening to radio is less.
But you know what I put that down to? Look at me as if I'm mad. I put that down to television. I mean, there's much more daytime television, and there's much more video technology and computers and what have you.
There's just much more of everything. I mean, there's an explosion of all these media. In fact, television viewing has also declined, and newspaper readership has also declined. I mean, I'm not talking huge amounts here, but they have gone down.
Yeah.
What are we doing instead?
Well, I mean, they're doing all sorts of things, going out playing sports and doing things.
And
Well,
working.
that's good.
And working. The greatest decline is amongst people who feel insecurity in the middle of their lives who are working harder than ever.
Yeah. Right. Let's just go to Max in Lincoln. What do you say, Max?
Hello, Stephen Gang. Well, I'm an ardent radio listener, but I think enough is enough in terms of stations. Let me give you an analogy. If I was a sultan with 100 beautiful girls lined up in front of me, I wouldn't know where to point my needle. It's getting a bit like that on radio stations.
I don't know what you're saying.
Don't touch that dial.
But don't you think that choice is of the essence? There should be a choice in anything. I mean, we have I'm saying this because, you know, I work in the newspapers a bit myself, but we have the greatest variety of newspapers here. in the greatest journalists. Variety is of the essence, and it's great, for example, in America to have any kind of television you want, any kind of radio station. If you give people choice, then they like you.
And in America, it's all dreadful. I mean,
no, that's not true.
Well, no, like Springsteen said, was it 57 channels and nothing on?
Yeah.
I mean, you get to a point where proliferation gets so great that eventually quality is going to go because you don't have to work for the listeners.
No, I disagree with you completely. We haven't got to that point
I'll tell you the big thing that has changed in music radio. I was doing an interview with Ian Brody at the Lightning Seeds, who makes just wonderful pop music. And he went over to America and he met up, he was doing the meet and greet, the shake and fake with all the radio people there. And this guy said to him, "Hey, Ian Brody, yeah, Lightning Seeds, yeah, you had a great test, man." And he said, "You what?" He said, "A great test, your record, a great test." You see, nobody anymore listens to records in radio and says, "Wow, that is a great record. We got to play that." What it means is they never put a record on the air until they've researched it.
Oh, I see.
They get a bunch of people together into an auditorium and they play them hook lines from a 17-year records or something, and they vote.
You see, I have to disagree with you slightly. No, but I'm a little bit. In my other guys, in my music program, I'm also a consultant, and what I do, I get to see the research on the music, and they do this thing called tracking, and basically they ask people what they want to hear, if they want to hear this song again when it's burned. I'm a little bit of a convert to that because you're actually giving the folk what they want rather than going out and playing a record, for example, that sounds great to you, but people don't
always know what they want. That's the whole point of radio, music radio. The biggest thing that was said when my Radio 1 Saturday afternoon show ended, where am I going to hear this kind of music now?
The choice.
You cannot hear it. So although there's lots of radio stations out there, more does not necessarily equal good. They're all got a narrow music format. There's a huge gap in demographics between Radio 1. When you get to 25, you're too old for that, and then you've got to wait till you're 55, 60 to get to Radio 2. Why isn't the BBC doing something for that biggest group in the middle?
I don't want this to turn into let's knock the BBC or let's knock commercial radio. I mean, my view is that everyone's a colleague, and choice is, as I say, is of the essence. I like to be able to have a choice. Don't you, Paul?
You might not always be working here either, so that's another consideration.
I think you'll find I'll be working here for another 1,000 years now. I think you know that, Paul.
Listen, what do you think about all these syndicated shows? Because it kind of knocks out the local stories, and it sort of locks out all those wonderful talents you could actually put on local radio.
What do you mean, syndicated shows of the sort that Steve does?
Well, I mean,
well, yes, actually, on a par with that.
I mean, I think there's room for everything. I mean, I think that people will, in any area, will tune to their local station, maybe to get some local news and some traffic, and then maybe tune to Radio 1 or may tune to Talk Radio. I think the fact that my point is the fact that they can do that is good.
Yes, I agree that. I think we should make the point that most musical formats are now catered for. You made the point in your introduction that there's now a country station. Now, that's London's least popular station, yet I love it. I don't think there's any connection between those two facts, but there is now a country station. There is Classic FM, which deals with classical music in a very different way from the way in which Radio 3 has done it for the last 40 years. I think most formats are catered for, and radio is richer, much richer, as a result, and much more exciting.
But shouldn't we have a national music station on FM? I mean, this whole idea we give a license to Virgin Radio to broadcast on a national basis. The first time ever there's been competition for Radio 1, and they're only on AM, outside of London, which is ridiculous. Why have a music station on AM?
But perhaps it's some kind of evolutionary process as opposed to a revolutionary process, because Johnny's always been a bit of a revolutionary. And,
just a rebel.
With all due respect, Johnny, I mean, you go through phases, don't you? You say, and then you're working for them. It's like, this was Johnny Walker in like 1960. Don't ever listen to, coming off the Pirates, don't ever listen to Radio 1. Then 3 years later you're working on there.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, no, you've got to understand.
Cover your back.
When I was on Radio Caroline, there were no commercial radio stations. There was no Radio 1. Radio 1 was launched in 1967, and there was a massive battle between the lone pirate voice of Radio Caroline out on the North Sea and Radio 1. And of course I was punting up Caroline and putting down Radio 1.
Yeah.
And Radio 1 was a poor copy of pirate radio stations, no question about it.
Yeah.
But that's, then when Caroline ended, I was faced with a choice. I did nothing for a year. I drove trucks and stuff. And then people said to me, listen, what are you going to do? If you want to continue to work in radio, you're going to have to go to the BBC and Radio 1. So there's no other choice then.
Yeah, it was the only place for you to go. John in Doncaster, why do all the stations claim they have more listeners? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I've noticed, when the ratings come out every 3 months or whenever, whatever.
Yeah.
I drive around quite a lot, and every radio station in the country seems to claim that they've got the biggest increase in listenership with the current ratings.
Well, I don't have the answer. Why is that, Paul?
As Radio said, there are lies, damned lies, and statistics. And it depends whether you take share or whether you take reach, and whether you compare your audience with what it was 6 months ago or 2 years ago. There's all sorts of ways of shall we say, adjusting the figures so that they lie in your favour.
But it's not necessarily lies, is it? It's just
No, you look for the
exaggerated realism.
So they lie in your favour, so they are in your favour.
No, you look for the best part of the overall result. You get your breakdown of so many different areas of your listeners. You look for the best news, and obviously you talk that bit up.
Let's talk to Richard in Milton Keynes. They just talk about TV. What do you mean, Richard?
Hi there. Right.
He's getting ready for a go here. Come on, Richard. Let's go for it.
Is, yeah, that you listen to radio stations, yeah?
Yeah.
And all they want to talk about is TV. It's no wonder people don't know what's going on the radio, you know?
Quite true.
And what I'd like to say is I'm a great fan of Johnnie Walker's, you know?
Who isn't?
And John Peel, you know, they're the best DJs.
Of all time.
Oh, yes.
Are you Johnny's father?
But stop talking about TV and talk about what's on radio, and then people will listen to it.
We only mentioned TV once, which was Richard. He said 57 channels, nothing on, the Springsteen thing.
No,
We're talking about radio here.
Yeah, I know.
I'm the transvestite you mentioned earlier.
No, I don't think it's that kind of TV,
Oh, is it
old
not?
friend.
Oh, right.
Shall I tell you why I think... I mean, I'm guilty of that too. And I think the reason you talk about TV is because it's a major preoccupation of your audience. So if you're talking about television, like, for example, the most popular television show at the moment is Heartbeat. So you really should be, at some point, talking about Heartbeat, because maybe last night, if you're on the air, a good majority of your audience, no matter where you are, watched Heartbeat. It's just another way of relating to your audience. How about that one? Richard, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know I was still on. Sorry. Yes.
Hey, Richard.
Richard,
you're on.
Hey, Richard, goodbye.
You're on.
Okay, we're going to go to Harry, and he's the director of a local independent radio station. Is that right, Harry?
Yes.
Is that a made-up name then, Harry, or are you coming on as yourself?
No,
Which
I'm
one?
being, would you believe, honest.
Which radio station?
Oh, well, I'd rather not say that, actually.
Why not?
Well, no, I'd just rather not, over the air.
Well, how do we know he is?
Well, why not? Why is there this conspiracy?
Because I don't want to be taken as speaking on behalf of my own radio station. I'm speaking as a listener.
Are you unable to speak on behalf of your radio station?
No, of course I am.
Well, then do it.
Do you want me to contribute
Yes,
in my own way? Or
yes,
do you
I
want
do.
to
It doesn't really
This
matter.
is one of the points I want to raise, actually.
All right, Harry, go ahead.
Because I also have just retired in the last year as a managing director of a regional newspaper group where I spent most of my life.
Right.
But that's just a little bit of background. First of all, let me say I've become a listener to Talk Radio UK almost every day now in the last year or so since I've retired. I think it's superb.
Great.
I think you're trying very, very hard, and I think you're doing an extremely good job. As far as the increase in share and the increase in audience reach is concerned, we all know in the industry that's pretty valid, and that Talk Radio, particularly Talk Radio UK, seems to be putting on listeners at a pretty fast rate of knots. The problem you have, as always, is attracting the right type of advertisers in sufficient numbers. And how you attract advertisers to Talk Radio has always been a difficult problem, as you would well know. I think the most difficult job of all is the one that you do, Steve. You, Scott, Tommy, and whatever, in trying to host what is basically quite often an open debate talk-in, and at the same time not making it boring, because you're entitled to put your own views, which you do very well, most of you, but also trying not to influence that debate too much through your own personal opinion. I think that's just about the most difficult job there is in radio. I think Scott is brilliant. I think Anna Rayburn is absolutely supreme in her field and a magnificent broadcaster.
I'm not, well, listen, I mean, I'm not a great fan of impartiality, frankly.
No,
I think that if you can stimulate a conversation by putting a particular point of view, and maybe it may be a radical point of view, obviously without being a shock jock, then I think that that's valid. I don't,
Well,
you know, this kind of...
Can I just say,
Harry, that's a question I'm really interested in, because I could never figure out...
Who am I talking to?
This is Johnny Walker.
Oh,
here.
hello, yes.
Hi, Harry. I could never figure out why newspapers were allowed to have an editorial opinion, but radio stations never are. It's absurd.
Well,
you know, it's like...
2 points on that, John, if I might. And you've got people there that are very experienced in newspapers as well. Sorry about the voice this morning, incidentally. But, of course, the editorial viewpoint in newspapers is normally contained in the editorial viewpoint column. It isn't necessarily spread right across the content.
No, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. You know if you buy... No, Harry, if you buy the Daily Mirror, you know you're buying a Labour paper.
Oh, well, yes, I'm not debating the political leanings, but he talked about an editorial. If you meant in that way, I suppose I'd have to say, yes, I suppose that is so. But I've nothing against what Steve said. In fact, I've expressed myself badly because I think it's quite valid and quite correct for you to put your own point of view. Why not? And to have a point of view. But that's the personal view of the presenter, not necessarily the company or the radio station.
Harry, we really appreciate your call, and you've thrown in a few things for us there.
Could I just say one last thing that I really phoned up about, and that is language.
Yeah.
I was watching the Evening Standard Awards last night on television.
Harry, we're really talking about radio here.
Hold on. The one thing radio is doing magnificently at the moment is not allowing in foul and vulgar and appalling language into people's homes. And I think you're going to have difficulty with that because it seems the F word is now part of people's vocabulary almost than being regarded as bad language.
This is Steve Wright on Talk Radio UK, 0345 1053 89. Thank you very much, Harry, for your call. We'll be right back.
When I fall in love. Time Life Music brings you the Timeless Music Collection. It will be forever. Relive 24 of the most unforgettable songs from a golden age of music from original artists Louis Armstrong, Doris Day, Nat King Cole, Perry Como, Kenny Rogers, and many more. Normally $14.99 plus £2 BMP, this great album can be yours for only $4.99 plus £2 postage and packing. Call free on 0800 444 851 to order your introductory album to the most comprehensive collection of easy listening music. Once you've heard this album, you'll have the chance to audition other albums from the Timeless Music Collection with no obligation to buy. Available on double CD or double-length cassette, this album cannot be found in the shops. Order your copy by calling free on 0800 444 851. Please allow 28 days for delivery. Call 0800 444 851 now.
The Daily Mail has urgent news for readers of the Today newspaper. If you had Today delivered to your home, here's an unexpected bonus. Today you will receive a free copy of the Daily Mail and Weekend magazine with its unbeatable 7 days TV guide. You can then continue to enjoy the Mail at half price for a further 8 weeks. If your newsagent has not already delivered your free Daily Mail, ask him for your free copy today. Welcome to the Daily Mail, newspaper of the year.
Talk Radio, Saturday morning.
We'll try and teach you.
The number
3, 4, 5, 53,
89.
You're on the air
with Steve Wright's Talk Show.
Oh, yes, thank you very much. It's 22 minutes to 12. This is Talk Radio UK, 10:53, 10:89 a.m. We're here until 1 o'clock. One of Mrs. Thatcher's favourite songs was written by none other than Rolf Harris, who will be here after the 12 o'clock news, so stay tuned and find out which one. Also, did you know there's a Bruce Forsyth social club, and here is somebody doing Bruce Forsyth right now.
No, that's more like Jimmy Hill, actually, isn't it? No, I can't. I can only do Jimmy Hill, actually.
And
sorry.
There is also an Alan Wicker Appreciation Society.
That's very good. Who's that you were just
That
doing?
was Alan Wicker.
All right.
You can find out if you have to be a lookalike and how you can join. That's also coming up later. Lots more to tell you. Let me also tell you about Simon Bates on Monday. He'll be talking to the big guy, Russell Grant. What will Jonathan Kaner say? Clive Turner on tobacco smuggling, also Alison Everett on Christmas shopping rage, and possibly Michael Ball, the well-known West End star. Simon Bates, we're talking big names. We're here with with Johnny Walker and also Paul Donovan, and we're talking about radio. We're going to go to line 2 here and find out what Neil in Rayleigh wants to say. Hello.
Hello, Steve.
How you doing?
Nice to talk to you. Great show.
Thank you.
Basically, my point was really that I think people use the radio much like people have got to using TVs with remote controls. Recently, I've started commuting to work, so it takes me about an hour and a half each way. That's 3 hours a day in the car. And I'll listen to talk radio, and if I think, I don't agree with that person, flick the knob, listen to Radio 1 for a bit. Get bored with that tune, flick the knob, listen to Capital Radio. So I probably listen to about 10 stations a day.
Do you really?
Yeah, easily.
Neil, do you find yourself, like, even when it gets to a song you don't like, flicking away?
Absolutely, every time.
Loads of people do that.
So, you know, and suddenly I'm getting tense stuck on the M25, so I stick a bit of classical, any radio station that's playing classical music. If there's a bit of opera on, turn it off, back to talk radio. One talking on there who I think, what a load of rubbish you're talking, flick again. And
what do you do at home now? I mean, this is great in the car because you've got those easy preset buttons.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
I actually bought a hi-fi with a remote, and I've got 10 controls, so I've tuned it into 10 different stations.
Sound like we might be dealing with an anorak here.
Well, you see, he comes from Rayleigh in Essex. That is the headquarters of anorak.
Well, it could be, actually. I'm not a train spotter, I assure you, but I do like listening to the radio, and I just tend to flick around.
I do exactly the same, but I think it's just important to say this is actually a very modern phenomenon. 7 years ago, most people were afraid of getting back to the station that they were listening to, so they never grazed the dial at all. But now with modern technology, people do, and that's what's made radio listening so much more promiscuous and developed the whole notion of niche broadcasting, so that each station just has a tiny little slice of a cake that remains the same size.
You're promiscuous, Neil. Did you know that?
Yeah. Well, that's typical of Rayleigh people.
That's right, yeah. I also know
Down the pink toothbrush.
on that hi-fi, you can even actually set it to automatically record your favourite radio station, which I think is crazy. It's like setting the video. I mean, I'm not that obsessed, but, you know...
Frankly now, Neil, you're moving into sadness. You had plenty of credibility when you came on, but you're moving into a kind of sad zone.
The truth is, I just want to win the car, and I'll say anything to get on the show, Steve, you know, so... You know.
I know.
Nice honesty.
I've tried to get on myself. Thanks very much, Neil.
Cheers, then.
We'll see you later. Bye-bye. Do you think, Paul, that people are attracted to personalities or are attracted to, as Neil was saying, that kind of jukebox phenomena?
People turn on the radio for different things. I mean, most people turn on for music, it has to be said, of different sorts, and people are, of course, attracted to personalities. I mean, Caesar the Geezer, if we can mention his name in this... I mean, a lot of people were attracted to him, but then, of course, a lot of people were not.
And I mean, who is your personal favourites on the air? I mean, I know you're probably not going to answer this because you're a critic. I mean, but what do you like to listen to? I mean, are you open to all kinds of influences, as it were?
Present company accepted.
Of course, yeah, we don't talk about us.
I love, in no particular order, John Donne, Desert Island Discs, many of the documentaries on Radio 4, a lot of the evening music on Radio 1, but I graze the dial like most people.
But you didn't mention any commercial radio there.
Well, we accepted present company, didn't we, at the beginning of that exchange?
But you did. But interesting that you didn't mention any commercial radio, and most of that stuff has been going for a long time.
Yeah, but I was only halfway through my list.
I'm sorry.
I'll stop it now.
I'm saying no, carry on.
Well, I like Capital, and I like the country station, which I mentioned before.
Yeah. And Johnny, what about for you at the moment? Do you think you're a personality, aren't you? You've always been a personality. I mean, certainly the one place for personalities to work is talk radio. It's an expanding deal.
Well, I always thought, listening to your afternoon show, which was an institution, it was crazy it was ever moved. But I always thought the records are a bit of a nuisance to Steve. You know, bit of an interruption.
Found my home here,
all
then.
this great chat going on. So this is the perfect place for you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, but I mean, forget me. I mean, what about for you?
No, I'd love to do some talk radio. I think it's a natural development in a way. I mean,
why do you think it's appealing?
It just allows you to, now, because of the way that radio is, a lot of the rules in radio, you know, you've got an 8-second link, you've got to mention the name of the radio station twice. There's not a lot of room for personality in music radio, but talk, you've got, of course, ultimate freedom to express your personality.
And listen, we're already being inundated, sadly, for you two guys, with people wanting to get on with Jonathan Kaner, the astrologer, and so we're going to kick you out. But
How are you, Jonathan? We spoke on the phone
many times.
I put this man on the radio first.
He did indeed, yes. Yeah. And what would but before he throws you out, what are you doing? What are you here to plug something?
I'm waiting for you to tell me what's going to happen.
Well, all right. I know you're an Aries. I know your career's looking good. I'm about to make a forecast along these lines.
Yeah, go on, then.
Well, where can we hear you these days?
Nowhere at the moment.
That's outrageous.
Johnny,
well, you
of course,
see, I'm in that gap. I mean, Steve had that gap. Simon Bates had that gap. You know, you leave one situation and you talk to different people and see what the...
Well, I was lucky enough to go and do my little telly and all my...